Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA predictions for UFC 123. Recapping UFC 122, I went 3-1 with my picks, which continues a solid run over the last 4 shows, where I've gone 17-5, and my overall record is now 28-14. As always, my videos are associated with sportsinteraction.com. Please click on the link in the description to get your free sign-up bonus and up to $125. Finally, make sure to check out lowkick.com for all your MMA news and information, including articles written by yours truly under the name ScottyJ86. Now, UFC 123 will take place on November 20th, 2010 at the Palace of Auburn Hills in Michigan. I will be giving my predictions for the 5 main card fights, along with the 2 UFC undercard fights that will be shown on Spike TV. Now let's get to the picking. First up, we have my abbreviated picks for the 2 Spike undercard fights. First on Spike, Mark Munoz will be taking on Aaron Simpson. These are 2 high-level American wrestlers, and they both have knockout power in their hands. I think this fight will come down to who can go the longest. Simpson gassed out against Levin in his last fight, while Munoz struggled with Okami's size, but was still attacking for almost the entire matchup. So my pick is Mark Munoz by TKO, probably late second round. Up next, Brian Foster will take on Matt Brown. Both these fighters are in need of a win, and it could be bye-bye for the loser of this matchup. I think this fight will come down to desperation, and with Brown sitting close to a 500 record if he loses, I'm thinking he's going to bring the house in this matchup. He will use his reach advantage to pick apart Foster, and Foster's had trouble in the past with submissions, so I'm going to take Matt Brown to submit Brian Foster late second round, early third round. Our first main card fight of the night takes place in the lightweight division between 18-5 Joe Lauzon and 13-2 George Soteropoulos. Soteropoulos enters the fight on a tear, having won 7 fights in a row, while Lauzon has won 9 of his last 11 matchups. For betting purposes, Lauzon is the significant underdog at $2.75, while Soteropoulos pays $1.40. Joe Lauzon is a BJJ purple belt and has 15 career submission wins. J-Lo is a very intelligent fighter, and his striking is definitely improving. Most of what Lauzon does on his feet is meant to set up his takedowns. He has 4 UFC submission wins, most recently against Gabe Rudiger. He's very aggressive, pushes the pace, and is constantly working for the takedown. When he gets the takedown, he likes to use big elbows and feverishly works to improve his position until he gets a chance for a submission. Even against Kenny Florian, he was able to take him down and do some damage on the mat. But in that fight with Florian, and against Sam Stout too, he slowed down after his early attacks and began to struggle when he couldn't store the takedown anymore. But even when Joe slows down, he's still constantly pressing his foe, though he's far less effective and leaves openings to be attacked. George Soteropoulos is an incredibly versatile fighter on the mat. He's a BJJ black belt and has an amateur boxing background. The Aussie has good takedowns, but at the same time has no problem working off his back. He likes to use the rubber guard to neutralize his opponent's top game and never stops attacking from the bottom. Soteropoulos has the ability to lock in a myriad of submissions and from any angle. He was very successful on the ground grappling against a very strong wrestler in Joe Stevenson, even mounting him and raining down some big shots. On his feet, he has good hands. He can put together some solid combos and can take a punch. Versus Kurt Pellegrino, George rocked him on a couple of occasions, and just like in the Stevens fight, he demonstrated he can go a full 15 minutes without slowing down. When I look at these 2 fighters, I think the Aussie is just a little bit better at almost all facets of the game. J-Lo is a purple belt, while George is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think that George's striking is a little bit more refined, and George is a better gas tank. Lauzon has the biggest problem when he fights an opponent that can neutralize his ground game. I expect that Lauzon will come out and push the pace early, but I think Soteropoulos will be able to neutralize Lauzon's biggest asset, which is his attacks on the mat, and leave the American without much to offer his opponent. If Lauzon is unable to do damage early, I see Soteropoulos smothering him on the ground, passing his guard, and either submitting or stopping his opponent with strikes. So my prediction is George Soteropoulos paying $1.40 to defeat Joe Lauzon. I'm going to go with submission. Second fight of the night takes place in the UFC light heavyweight division. 8-3 Tim Boetsch takes on the undefeated 7-0 Phil Davis. Davis is the heavy betting favorite, paying $1.13, while Boetsch pays $5.05. Boetsch enters the fight having won 4 in a row with only one of those wins in the UFC, where he has compiled a 3-2 record, while Phil Davis has won his opening 3 fights inside the octagon with 2 decisions and 1 submission. Tim Boetsch is a very unorthodox striker. In his debut fight with David Heath, he effectively used kicks to attack, including a push kick. Normally, the push kick is used for defensive purposes, but the Barbarian likes to use it offensively, which really throws his opponents off. He has knockout capabilities in his hands and will throw knees from the clinch with good power. Despite losing both fights to Matt Hamill and Jason Brills, he did use his strikes to bloody both fighters. But also in those fights, he struggled with the wrestling of his opponents and got worn out on the mat. I question Boetsch's gas tank, and he seems to slow down the longer the fight lasts and has had most of his success finishing fights early. Phil Davis is a former national wrestling champion. His striking is improving, and he likes to lean on his opponents against the cage and attack with knees and elbows. His bread and butter are his takedowns, and Davis is relentless on the ground. He likes to use strikes from the top to soften his opponent to make submissions easier. He is still learning the submission game and has struggled to finish out his subs versus Rodney Wallace because of Wallace's strength. Davis has shown that he has great stamina and can maintain constant pressure from bell to bell, but his chin has never been tested, which could be an issue versus Boetsch. Tim Boetsch will have the advantage on the feet, and paying over $5 he seems tempting, but Boetsch has struggled with good wrestlers, and Davis will be the best wrestler he has faced to date. In his fights with Hamill and Brills, Boetsch's striking advantage only lasted until his opponent established the takedown. As soon as that happened, Boetsch became very hesitant. If he can avoid the power strikes of the Barbarian, I expect that Davis will be able to take Boetsch down and wear him out. In the end, I think Davis will simply overwhelm Boetsch on the mat, so my prediction is Phil Davis paying $1.13 to beat Tim Boetsch by second round stoppage. Up next, we move to the UFC middleweight division. Gerald Hurricane Harris, 16-2, matches up at 25-3, Mikhail Big Rig Falco. Harris is the betting favorite, paying $1.30, while the UFC newcomer pays $3.20. Harris will be entering the octagon for the fourth time. He is undefeated in the UFC and has won 10 consecutive fights. Falco is making his UFC debut, but has won 7 in a row and 11 of his last 12. Mikhail Falco has big power in his hands, having recorded 22 knockouts in his career, and has only gone past the first round on 4 occasions, of which one of those fights made it to the third frame. He also has very heavy leg kicks and a vicious ground and pound. I find it very interesting that the UFC has elected to put the Brazilian's debut on the main card of the pay-per-view. This indicates to me that Mikhail must bring something to the table that Joe Silva and the UFC brass feel is noteworthy. From the footage I've seen, he has good takedown defense and good scrambles that usually result in him ending up on top for some nasty ground and pound. But I question his conditioning, as he has only gone past the first round on a few occasions. Gerald Harris is a good wrestler. He has great endurance and solid ground and pound. Harris does not possess the most refined striking, but did stop Mario Miranda at UFC 116 with strikes and holds 8 KO victories over his career, with the majority by ground and pound. From what I have seen of Harris, he has a very low stance, which shows constant threat of the takedown, and when he does engage, he likes to jump into his punches. He did show an effective use of timing versus Miranda and countered very well, but also in that fight he got caught with a shot that certainly wobbled him. The Brazilian is the better striker. Harris is the superior wrestler. What concerns me in this fight is that it goes past the first round, how will Falco hold up? If Harris is able to get the takedown and keep Falco down, he will be in control of the fight from bell to bell. If he isn't able to control him on the mat, Falco has made a living off pounding out grapplers that can't complete their takedowns. Something tells me that the UFC sees potential in the newcomer, so I'm willing to take a risk and take the underdog, Mikhail Big Rig Falco, paying $3.20 to upset Gerald Harris by first round knockout. Moving to the co-main event, two legends of the fight game square off. It's 45-7 Matt Hughes meets 15-6 and 1 BJ Penn for the third time in their careers. Hughes enters on a resurgent run, having won 3 consecutive fights, while BJ has dropped 2 in a row, both to Frankie Edgar and both with a lightweight title on the line. In spite of his struggles, BJ enters as the betting favorite, paying $1.60, while Matt Hughes pays $2.20. BJ's struggles over his last 2 fights versus Frankie Edgar have been well documented. Fortunately for him, his opponent at UFC 123 isn't anything like Edgar. Penn is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and in his career he has 6 submission victories. One of those submissions came at the expense of Matt Hughes via rear naked choke at UFC 46 over 6 years ago. To go along with his submission skills, BJ has very heavy hands and some of the best boxing skills in the UFC. While fighting the lightweight division, he successfully stopped Diego Sanchez and Sean Shirk by simply outclassing them on the feet. Penn's gas tank has been a question mark, but over his run as lightweight champion, he seemed to overcome those issues. In the second meeting with Hughes, Penn again had success early in the fight, but suffered a rib injury and was stopped in the third round by Hughes. Overall, Penn has lost his last 3 fights at welterweight against Hughes and twice versus St. Pierre. But on the other side of success, Matt Hughes has been putting together a nice little run at welterweight with 3 consecutive wins. Since his first meeting with Penn, Hughes has gone 10-3 overall and hasn't lost an opponent not named Alves or St. Pierre. Hughes is very strong, has a good wrestling base, and more than serviceable standout. Against Enzo Gracie, he used leg kicks to chop his opponent down, and then against Ricardo Almeida, he flipped Ricardo, knocking him down, and then cinched in a front headlock choke for the victory. Hughes can pretty much do it all and really has only had trouble against fighters that have been able to match his strength. In their previous installments, Pettis got the better of Hughes until an injury felled him late in the second fight. Right now, BJ is desperate. He's never lost 3 fights in a row in his career. He was just run out of the lightweight division and is very much in need of a win to turn things around. While Hughes feels he could be a win or maybe 2 wins away from a potential title shot. In his defeats, Penn seems to be unable to adapt and make changes when things aren't working out. For Hughes, things seem to be going in the right direction, period, no matter what he seems to do of late. I like the value in Hughes as the underdog, and I think he's in a better place right now mentally. So my prediction is Matt Hughes paying $2.20 to control BJ Penn with his wrestling and pick up a decision victory. The main event of UFC 123 will feature 2 former light heavyweight champions as 30-8 Quinton Rampage Jackson takes on 16-1 Lyoto the Dragon Machida. Both fighters are looking to rebound after suffering defeats in their last fights. Machida's loss to Shogun was the first of his career and cost him the light heavyweight title, while Rampage dropped a decision to Rashad Evans in his return to the octagon after almost a 12-month layoff. Lyoto is the betting favorite, paying $1.32, while Rampage, the underdog, pays $3.10. First off, Jackson has never lost back-to-back fights in his career. He's an aggressive fighter with big power in his hands, and he has scored 14 career knockouts over names like Ricardo Arona, Vanderlei Silva, and Chuck Liddell. He is also well known for his slams. Even though he hasn't shown a lot of that in his most recent fights, they're still a real threat. Rampage likes to stalk his opponent, wade in, looking to connect with big shots, and will score a takedown if necessary. But over his last 5 fights, Rampage has only had 1 fight not go the distance, which says to me that fighters are doing a good job avoiding Rampage's power. In his 2 most recent defeats, both Rashad Evans and Forrest Griffin had great success when they used their quickness to keep Jackson at a distance. When they engaged Quinton, it was with quick bursts before pulling back out of his reach. The Rampage was able to connect with both of his opponents in those fights and certainly had them in trouble. But in the end, he got outpointed, and that's what it came down to. Lyoto Machida's style can be summed up in one word: elusive. But up until his knockouts of Thiago Silva and Rashad Evans, some might have used the word boring. Either way, Lyoto is a very difficult fighter to hit. The Shogun Hua did put a dent in that mystique when he took Machida's title away. In his ideal performance, the Dragon likes to keep at a distance before launching with very accurate strikes and then retreating. Against Thiago Silva, Machida used the power puncher's aggressive style against him, avoiding his advances and using counter strikes to pick up the W. Machida does have a good gas tank and has gone a full 5 rounds, so 3 rounds won't be an issue. One thing that concerns me is his chin. Because of his style, his chin has very rarely been tested, and when it was by Shogun, he got put to sleep, and the guy sitting across from UFC 123 will have the same power. Heading into this fight, Lyoto Machida has vowed to begin another run at the title, while Rampage has dropped hints in interviews that he's losing interest in the fight game. Lyoto's quickness and elusive style certainly equates to success versus Rampage. If you do a little MMA math, Rashad was too quick for Rampage, and then Evans had trouble making contact with Machida. Therefore, Rampage should struggle with Machida's speed. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work like that. My concern is that this is Lyoto's return fight after his first defeat and his first knockout, and I'm curious to see how he will respond. Even with the success that Evans and Griffin had, Rampage was still able to connect, and it'll be interesting to see if he hits Machida what does happen. I'm going to bank on Machida outpointing Rampage for the 3 rounds and not getting caught. So my prediction is Lyoto Machida paying $1.32 to defeat Rampage Jackson by decision. So in summary, there are no odds posted for the Matt Brown fight. So I'll put him around $1.65. Mark Munoz at $1.50. George Soteropoulos paying $1.40. Phil Davis at $1.13. Mikel Falco, the underdog, at $3.20. Matt Hughes paying $2.20. And finally, Lyoto Machida paying $1.32. The betting price will be $36.28. And the payout will be just over $3,600 and a $100 bet. So there are my picks for UFC 123. As always, check out sportsinteraction.com to make your bet for UFC 123. Click on the description below to get your free deposit bonus. Please feel free to leave your comments and your own picks. And if you have a better picking night than I do, I will certainly mention you on my next show. I will see you back here for the Ultimate Fighter finale my picks in December. And thank you for watching Kamikaze Overdrive MMA predictions for UFC 123.